T.J. Lang's son.
Yes.
And Rick Wagner. Oh, boy.
Yes. Hey, I was surprised to see. I'm pretty sure, like, once the numbers and stuff came out, is the Vikings paid Riley more than we paid Ricky Wagner.
Yeah, definitely, and they're going to put him at that left side. So
Ziggy's licking his chops already.
Absolutely,
man.
man. But yeah, I mean, just locking up that right side, and we got plenty of bodies to try to figure out that left guard spot. I mean, wow, it really makes you feel good about that O-line.
Yeah, I think like out of that TJ Lang signing, I think the thing that excited me most about the whole thing was like hearing the story about how like he was 99% sure he's going to Seattle, and then the maestro wanted him bad enough that he like made another offer to just kind of seal the deal. Like I don't feel like you've ever heard a story like that as long as I can remember.
Exactly, like the way they played it, where they had him on the visit, talked to Stafford, hung out, were cool enough to say, hey, go on your other visits, but the minute they probably got wind that he was going to sign, they stepped up to the plate, and I mean, it was a lot of money, but I don't think it was totally exorbitant. I just think it was, there's no chance that Ricky Wagner and TJ Lang come here and are terrible,
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Do I love paying them $10 million, on average, type of thing? Not so much, but I know they're not going to, be in the streets or be out of the league in a couple of years. So I feel good about the investment.
Yeah, I do too. I think we're finally being smart about spending money on that kind of stuff instead of like more weapons for Stafford. Because they've always been in that mindset, like the last 7 or 8 years or so, just trying to get him weapons, and they keep ignoring probably the most important part of the offense is keeping him protected.
Yep, and I think they will still, because it looks like they're trying to extend him, so part of that is making him feel good about his O-line. I'm sure you're going to see some pieces, quote-unquote, weapons be added, but Bob Quinn, he definitely has a plan, and he definitely knows what he wants, and he goes and gets it, and, I feel good about that because they just went in and got those two guys, got a couple, side type players, bench players, and they just kind of waiting now to see what happens in the draft, see what might come available, but they definitely have a plan, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about adding two guys on the right side is that now we don't have to worry about spending another, first-round pick on like a right tackle or something stupid like that. And finally start getting better, getting younger and stuff on defense.
And I like what he said about, not being too young because, I love the draft. I would just trade down and have 20 draft picks every year to some degree. But he said at the O-line, you can't be too young. And so now we have a really nice mixture, which we talked about before. And what he does, too, is he goes out and gets these guys that are, at that cusp of either going to really turn, they're at that prime age and they could turn into be really good. And you look back and go, wow, we got him at a good price at a good time. Rather than getting an older guy where even if he's good, he's already had his best days behind him. I mean, Ricky Wagner is right there, and T.J. Lang is just, as a Pro Bowler at 30 or 28, 29, 30, however old he is like still a really good age. So I see him doing that of just, the age, the ability, and the contract all kind of come together.
Yeah, and I read an article the other day about how they really started to identify, like in October, November, that the offensive line was probably going to be their top priority in the offseason because they knew Warford and Reese contracts were up. So, I mean, they started working on it for a long time. It wasn't just like, oh, my God, these guys aren't going to re-sign. We have to find replacements. Like he was, he was ahead of the game, which I think is important. I think we knew all along that, they weren't going to re-sign Reese and Warford just because, they're Reese and Warford. Warford was decent, but he's not TJ Lang.
No, not at all. Even from a mentality standpoint, like Larry, I remember he'd get beat sometimes, or he was an okay leader, but not galvanizing kind of guy. Whereas TJ Lang, I think, would come in and be that vet that gets in people's face if they're not playing well and has been through some playoff games. Like that's what we need.
Yeah, and I think it helps too because initially once you sign Ricky Wagner and based on his age and that he has, you basically automatically are putting him into that leadership role on your offensive line. And he might not be comfortable doing so because he's had to basically work his way up to where he's at. He might not have those kind of intangibles, but TJ Lang is like a proven leader. So now you bring him in, and now Ricky, all he got to focus on is doing his job and leave all that other stuff to TJ. Which makes sense.
Yeah, totally agree, man. It's and the other thing you said about the planning, like, 'cause I read that thing too about how it started way back in October. My thing is, when we were talking about the draft a few weeks ago, remember we were trying to figure out, like, okay, if at 21 some of these other guys aren't there, do we go for a Rand check? Do we go for Bowles out of Utah? And we didn't really love those, but those are really the only two tackles that we could think of that could play the right size. So there's another thing where Quinn went out, not only did he plan ahead, but he identified, hey, this draft kind of sucks for offensive tackles, but we really do need to shore up that right side. So he went and did it through free agency, knowing that this draft is full of corners, DNs, linebackers, safeties, all the other parts that he needs. So he's kind of molding it together, and that's what you got to do, man. You got to look at where free agency is strong and weak and where the draft is and mold the two together.
Right.